y'all, it's Taylor from Tattooed Teacher Plans. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Today we are doing my annual goals, and this is part 3 in my 3-part series on my goal planning for 2022. I use the makselife system for my goal planning, and I love it so much, and it just has really guided me in the right direction and really given me the tools to get there. So now, before we get started, I just want to make it clear, like I have in every video, this is not the right way to do it because there's no right way to do it. Whatever works for you is what works for you, and you should do that. You do not have to copy me. You're welcome to if you want to, but this just works well for my brain, and I just really love my process, and I want to share it with you. So let's get into my annual goals. Okay, so let me get some stuff out of the way. So I'm using the companion notebooks this year. So I have my booklet here with the goal setting steps and instructions that we're going to get into. But I do want to show you kind of my pre-planning process here. So I've been working on my annual goals for a couple of weeks now. I started with some Post-its and I threw them away. I don't know why I did because I meant to show them to you, but I just started by jotting down some things that I wanted to do for 2022. And that was very informal, but I just had a Post-it for each category, and I just would brain dump every couple of days about things I wanted to be thinking about in the next year. Then I started getting more into my goal setting here in my booklet. So what I've done so far is my compass assessment, and I have scored myself here based on the assessment scores. Then I did my intentions and really just kind of set the stage and the tone for what I wanted to do with the next year. I chose my word of the year, which is thrive. And then I went here in the back and I created a mind map of my word of the year. You do not have to do this. It's not an absolute necessary step, but it helps me in getting to my annual goals. So what I do here is define my word of the year, which I really thought about, and I chose according to what I felt I needed. So I defined that. Then I made a space for each of the different categories. And then I just wrote down, what do I need to thrive in each of these categories? These are statements, they're phrases, they are specific things, but these are my thoughts about what I want to do to thrive. So really, I'm going to take my mind map here and I'm going to use this to inspire my annual goals. In some cases, I'm going to take things word for word. In some cases, I'm going to change the wording. And in others, I'm going to add things or build on what I've already collected here. So this just really helps me to get in the right mindset and really to have a starting point too, so that I don't get overwhelmed with my annual goals. Because when you think about like writing goals for the whole year, that can be a little much. So I'm going to go to these pages now. These are blank. This is where I'm going to write my annual goals. I have a space for every category. There are 3 parts to each of these sections. So for each one, you write a focus, and I like to write a word or phrase that I want to carry out throughout the year. You then write your goals, and then you answer, how will my life improve by reaching these personal goals in this section? So I'm not just jumping right into this. Let me show you kind of my prep work. So I already mentioned the Post-its, which I did actually before my mind map. But then once I did my mind map, then I could really break down. Here is my kind of my first draft of different things. I really just wanted to organize them in a way on these little printables. I really suggest you use the printables on the makselife website if you are not sure about if you want to buy, and also if you are on a budget and you can't quite fit it into your budget, then you can use the printables. You have everything you need there. So really there isn't any boundaries for you to use the makselife system, which is one of the things I love about it. But what I did is I just printed these off and I started organizing, and you can see from the Post-its to this is still pretty messy, but it did give me kind of a starting point for my final draft. And so then last week I sat down, I looked at my draft, and I also looked at my mind map, and here and I figured out how I wanted to organize them and how I wanted to kind of answer all of these questions, choose my focus word, things like that. So I chose my focus words actually before, like during my mind map process. So I have them, I just transferred them over here. And then I looked at my mind map. Let's just look at personal, for example, before I start like actually building it with you. So for personal, I looked at self-care, routines, reflection, fulfillment, hobbies, and giving myself grace. For this category, which most of these are not exactly like this, I chose these words, put them over here, and organized them into different categories. And these really stood out to me, these two categories, self-care and fulfillment. And then the other words just kind of like fell into those two categories because in my personal area, these are the two things that I want to do in 2022. That's a lot. So self-care really struck me. And I think that routines are part of my self-care routine. Also how I use my time. So that includes like time blocking on my weekends or time blocking my days off or using my time in the best way during the summertime, things like that. And then fulfillment, that word just kind of like jumped right out at me this whole process. Like that word just keeps coming up. And it's one that before I narrowed down my whole list for my word of the year, it's one that I kind of like put on my short list. But when it comes to fulfillment in my personal area, reflection, giving myself grace will give me fulfillment, and investing in my hobbies. So, and then how will my life improve? I will feel true fulfillment and balance. So this process, I want to make clear, is not like a one and done kind of thing. At least for me, I have to work through several drafts to get to my final product. And I probably will still make changes to this when I start to write in my booklet here. There are so many ways to do this. So I really like mind mapping. That's just how my brain works. I like to see things very organized, but there's other ways that you can do this. Some people like to draw pictures. Some like to make lists. Some like to make columns and separate different categories or boxes. You could even just like make a little plus sign and you have 4 quadrants. You can do whatever you want. And I want you to feel that freedom. Now that can be kind of scary, but if you do the draft process, then you kind of work out what you want, if that makes sense. Also, if you're not ready for annual goals, let's say you have a mind block or you have too much going on, or you just do not feel deep down that you are ready for this, that's okay. Here's a couple of options. You can use Post-its. I did that last year actually, and then I finally wrote it on the paper, but you can use Post-its, like put 2 Post-its here, and you can use this space instead of writing on the paper, and then you can change out the Post-its until you figure out what you want, or just keep the Post-its the whole time. Do whatever you want. Also, maybe, and this I think is kind of a small percentage of people, but this is an option. Maybe you just skip the annual goals and you just go straight to the monthly goals and you start there. Also, another option, option 3, is maybe you just want to keep this very small. So maybe you only need 3 things per category. Maybe you don't do a focus word. Whatever you got to do, you do that. Do what works for you, because this process is supposed to be helpful for you, and you got to do what is actually going to be helpful for you. Okay, so I'm going to put this, I think over here to the side, over here. Okay, and then I'm going to open this up, and we're going to get started. I'm really, really just like ready for this. I've been working on my goals since the end of November, I think, just kind of off and on. I don't ever work on it like for a whole day or anything like that. That doesn't work for me. I work in small bursts, like 30 minutes here, and then a week goes by, and then I spend an hour or an hour and a half, and then another week goes by, or 3 days, or whatever. I like to digest, come back to it, and with another draft until I finally get to this point. So give yourself some time, give yourself some grace, and figure out what works for you, and do that. All right, let's get into it. All right, I got my pen. This is my Pentel Energel Infree in 0.7. And then I also have my Tombow white out tape or correction tape. I also have my mild liners that match the colors of the makselife, which I'm going to use. So this format is what I want to go for. But again, I just want to make tweaks as I go, but this is pretty close to what I want. Now, as I'm writing this on the page, I am thinking about what do I need in this category and what do I want for myself in this category, because I think wanting things is also a part of goals. And also, just as I am like flipping back here, this has a lot of great information about writing goals. And I suggest you read through these if you haven't already. There's different types of goals. Here's the thing about writing goals though. You got to do what works for you. I'm going to say that a million times in this video. For me, SMART goals don't really work. I like to write broad statements. I also like to write specific things. And then I like to write measurable things. I don't necessarily need all of the pieces of a SMART goal to write a goal for myself. So this is my process. If SMART goals work for you, then do that. But for me, I really like to be a little bit more flexible and kind of more fluid. So I just wanted to say that too before we get started. I know I've said we're going to get started a million times, but we really are. Last thing is this page is super helpful, and actually I'm going to go ahead and tear it out. I did this in my last one as well. It is perforated. So what I love about this list is it will give you things to think about, because it's the things to consider list, and it's awesome. So there we go. Also, on the other side, it has ideas for weekly actions and weekly reflections. So here is this list. So just in personal, you can see the things that I'm going to look at while I write my goals. So I think we're ready to finally start. Finally. For real this time. Let's do it. Since I've already talked you through my thought process on my personal category, let me talk you through how I am setting this up physically. So I like to have the name of the category in the middle, and then I have my subcategories off to the side. That way I have room above and below my subcategories to add in even more information. So I really like how it's set up like this, because I can use those subcategories for ideas when I get to my monthly planning, but I can also get more specific within those subcategories and write things that I want to specifically get done. So I just really like how this works. One of the questions that I got when I was prepping for this was, what do you do if a goal is something you maybe don't want to start off with at the beginning of the year, but maybe you want to incorporate it later, or it's just not pertinent at the beginning? That's totally fine. You can either leave it off and add it later, or you can go ahead and put it in here, and then when you get to your monthly goals, just leave it until you're ready. So don't be afraid to add in things that maybe you don't feel like you're quite ready to tackle, but you want to have it here so that it's with your annual goals too, if that makes sense. So let's talk about fun and recreation for me. I really have this sense of need for adventure. So I made that my focus word for this year, and I'm adding in things. A lot of them came from my mind map, which is great, but I also added in some other things. So when I get to my subcategories, I decided on need and want. Need are things that are readily accessible and that are things that I need to do on a regular basis. The wants are things that I want to do maybe each month or something bigger. And one of the things that I added here was getting my passport. I let my passport expire years ago, and I don't have any international trips planned, but that's one thing that I wanted to be sure to include in my goals, because, that's kind of a process, and I want to make sure that I get it done this year. And the way that I would improve my life in fun and rec is my heart will be full and my eyes open. And that sounds a lot like from Friday Night Lights, which I'm not mad at. And then in work and learning, I separated it in work and learning. I think that's important because I don't want this category to be just about my job, which I love my job, but I also wanted to include like lifelong learning in this. And so just splitting that category into those two words, I think was really helpful for me here. And you can see here that I am writing things that are kind of specific, like taking half days, but also more broad that I can build on and like come up with different ideas to tackle that one, like be the leader I needed. So I just kind of wanted to incorporate all different kinds of things in both of those categories, because I think a lot of the times we get like drawn into just thinking about work when there's a whole lot more into that category. In family and relationships, my focus word is appreciate. I really want to appreciate my friends and family. I think I got a little bit too comfortable with being alone. And I think this happened to a lot of people too in 2020 and 21. And I really want to strengthen those bonds, but also I've also felt the need to create healthy boundaries too with both friends and family and acquaintances and work friends and things like that. So I created the two categories, healthy boundaries and bonds. And I think splitting it up that way kind of gives me both sides of this category. And the way my life will improve is I will build stronger and healthier bonds with the people I love. And then you'll see here, I didn't talk about this already, but you can see that I'm highlighting just certain things. I don't want to cover the whole thing with highlight. I just want to bring some color to it to keep it cohesive, but also just to kind of just bring out the important things. Okay, moving on to health and wellness. And this is always the category that has the most things in it for me, so I really had to strategize here. The two category or subcategories that I chose for this category were build on my foundation and towards longevity. So I worked really hard in 21, despite the challenges, to build a really healthy foundation. Am I fixed? No, I'll never be. I'm a work in progress. Everyone is. But I have a strong foundation, especially in my mindset. And so I wanted to kind of note those things because I have work to do in those areas still. So I wanted to include those in my annual goals. But I also want to think ahead. And I think before in years, before this year, I really have just focused on like the now, but I am 37 now. I need to be thinking forward. And so having that longevity category gives me that aspect of my health and wellness goals. And really on the longevity, healing, physical and emotional healing, getting a general practitioner, which I put off 4 years, and taking care of myself regularly. That means making maintenance appointments for my body and going to them, and then scheduling the next one and just keeping up with everything. So here is where I'm having a color crisis. I was just in my head thinking, they've changed this color, and I had to look in a couple of other books. The new one and this is the old one. They did change the color. I'm not making this up in my brain. I just had to convince myself. So I decided to change my mild liner color. It doesn't match perfectly, but I think it's a better fit than what I used last year with the old color. So for spiritual and personal growth, I have two subcategories, an open heart and caring for others. And I really wanted to continue my gratitude practice, so I made sure to put that in there because I can let that go. And I really, really don't want to like give up on that. And then also caring for others. I split up donations into two subcategories, time and money, because this year I want to keep those separate because I will pay more attention to them instead of just saying donations in general. And so I think this color like works, but it's not perfect. But we're just going to go with it. And it's too late now. And I was checking one more time, like the color situation, but it has changed. Okay, let's go to financial. For my financial focus, really just general things here. I want to create stability for myself, which I have and I want to maintain. And then I also want to grow. And so I want to spend within my means. I want to build my retirement, build up my savings even more. And then on the growth side, I want to go on a trip and I want to start saving for that, because that will not only grow myself as a person, but also if I start now saving, then it won't be a burden later. And then I really wanted to include this in my goals this year. Use money for experiences, not things. So I'm going to look at that every time I write my monthly goals, and I'm going to think about that when I create my budget and I update my budget. I didn't include my budget here because I just didn't feel the need to. That's part of my routine now, and it's not a goal anymore because it just exists within me and in my schedule. Let's go to physical environment. So for this one, I just split it up into small tasks and larger projects. And the larger project side has a lot more on it. And one of those projects is redesigning my bedroom and my bathroom that's attached. And that's going to be something that's a summer project, but it's something I want to work on, like prepping throughout the first part of the year. I also want to deep clean a room every month and just get on a schedule with that and just create a comfortable environment for myself, whether that's updating things or redoing things. And then my home will be more orderly and comfortable, which is my ultimate goal. Order and comfort kind of go together for me, and it's what I need. All right, so my annual goals are done. Oh, I'm so glad to have these done and ready for the new year. I want to jump right into my January goals, but I'm going to give it a minute to set in, and then maybe in a few days I will work on that. But let's just look at the finished product here. So I've got my personal, fun and recreation, work and learning, family and relationships, health and wellness, spiritual and personal growth, financial, and physical environment. So one thing that I want to do before I kind of, wrap this up is mark my stretch goal. So stretch goals are, if you can go back here and look at them even more, but these are like your long-term things. You shouldn't have very many of them because they're like something that you hope for in your life. And the one that has really been on my heart for 2022 is right here with healing. And I really want to mark that this is my stretch goal in some way. And I was thinking of maybe doing like kind of an arch over that and highlighting it in maybe even a different color or something like that. So let me write in stretch so that I remember that that's my stretch goal. Okay, I think I will just use this blue just to make it look, kind of uniform. But I'm just going to let that dry for a minute, and then I'm going to go over it with this blue, just, highlighting that as my stretch goal for this year. There could be other ones, of course, that I could pull out, but that's the one that I really want to focus on for next year. Okay, so we are finished. I can't believe I'm done. I feel like I've been working on this for a long time and then like not very long at all. I love setting my goals. It is a hard process because you have to think a lot. You have to be vulnerable with yourself. But at the same time, like it's so satisfying to be done. So what are my next steps now that I have my annual goals set and I'm ready to go? That is this next book, which is my first quarterly book. And I will start with my January goals, which are right here, or they will be with my monthly goals. So I'm going to, like I said, film this soon, and it will be up in early January for you to see how I take my annual goals and I apply them to the month. And then I also look at my weekly actions and pull out things for that first week. So that's going to be fun too. I just love the start of the new year. There's something to be said for it, even though like it's just another year, it's just another week, another month, all that. But there is something about starting fresh. And I think we all could use a fresh start. The future is unknown and we can't control it, but we can do our best right now and we can plan for the best. So I have a lot of hope in 2022 and I want to hold on to that hope. And my goals are going to help me do that. So if you have any questions about my process of goal planning, leave those down in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them for you. And any questions about the makselife system in general, I can definitely handle those for you as well. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit that notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload. And I will see you next time. Bye!